Tonight, Ross reports on the disclosures of someone who is telling U.S. prosecutors he has firsthand inside knowledge of this corruption.
This is Everett Bannister, a longtime friend and former business partner of the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Lynden Pindling. And, according to drug smugglers, the man who says he is the Prime Minister's bag man.
Get it away from me!
When NBC News tried to talk to Bannister 3 years ago, he became very angry.
Watch out, watch out!
Later that day, the Prime Minister's office ordered restrictions that have essentially banned NBC News from the Bahamas ever since. The relationship of Bannister and Prime Minister Pindling has been the subject of allegations, investigations, and official reports in the Bahamas and the United States. But no one alleging direct knowledge has ever come forward to link the two to corruption. Now, someone has.
Deeper than my father's heart, I think he realizes that it's time for us to go our separate ways.
The someone is Bannister's son, 31-year-old Gorman Bannister, who has broken with his father and is now in this country, telling American authorities about his father and the Prime Minister.
Various times the Prime Minister didn't have any money problems, at times of which he did. He'd call my father would give him money.
What would you guess is the amount of money your father has given Prime Minister Pindling?
And actual cash, I would have to say several $1 million.
Bannister's son is telling American authorities about the Prime Minister's new $2 million house and how his father allegedly used bribe money to pay for some of it. Bannister's son is talking about fugitive Robert Vesco, who hid out in the Bahamas and allegedly used Everett Bannister to handle huge bribes. And the story of a big payoff from another man on the run, the late Nicaraguan dictator Somoza, who sought refuge in the Bahamas. Gorman Bannister says he helped count the bribe money Somoza gave his father.
I think it was approximately $320,000.
From Somoza?
Yes. I counted out $280,000, and I separated from him because he said that he was taking that to the Prime Minister.
Under Pindling and Bannister, the Bahamas have become the Cocaine Islands, a smuggler's paradise. Gorman Bannister says his father tipped off drug smugglers on the Bahamian island Norman's Key about planned police raids. And in 1982, Gorman Bannister says he accompanied his father to Colombia, where the two met with one of the world's biggest cocaine bosses, Carlos Lehder, who is now in jail in Georgia.
My father and I, and Carlos, we walked across the land.
Gorman Bannister says Lehder told his father about an unsuccessful attempt to kill a member of the Bahamian parliament, Norman Solomon, whose car and house were firebombed when Solomon began investigating drug smuggling on Norman's Key.
Carlos told my father that he bombed Norman's car because Norman tried to depict his Colombian people as dogs and scoundrels.
Solomon was not killed in that bombing.
Unfortunately, from my father's point of view.
What did your father say?
My father said you should have killed him.
On the streets of the Bahamas, there are now many young people who are addicted to cocaine. Gorman Bannister admits he's one of them. And that's one reason he's decided to go against his father and his father's friend, Prime Minister Pindling.
I'm talking about Lynden Pindling. I'm talking about my father and other people in the hierarchy, but that were below them.
They are corrupt.
I would say so, yes.
You know it as a fact?
Yes.
Are you prepared to talk about that to prosecutors in this country?
If necessary, yes, because it's the truth.
Even if you can't go back to your father, you can't go home?
It's irrelevant. That will always be my father, and I will always love him. But it's time for the truth.
Bannister's father and the Prime Minister have both denied all allegations of corruption. Hours after this interview, Gorman Bannister was placed under the protection of federal agents in Miami, and he is expected to be an important witness in a growing number of cases involving drugs and drug corruption in the Bahamas. Brian Ross, NBC News, Miami.
Another political leader who allegedly has been involved in the cocaine trade is Bahamian Prime Minister Lynden Pindling. Federal authorities have turned up witnesses who said that Pindling was paid off to provide a safe haven for, among others, Carlos Lehder, identified by federal prosecutors as one of the most powerful cocaine lords in Colombia. Lehder's trial on drug trafficking is wrapping up in Florida this week. NBC's Brian Ross, who first reported many of the stories detailing Lehder's alleged coke empire, tonight describes how the Lehder trial generated new problems for Pindling.
Of the millions of Americans who have had a love affair with cocaine, there are very few who have ever met this man, Carlos Lehder. But according to federal authorities, Lehder, more than anyone, is the man who first made possible the now infamous cocaine binges of Hollywood, New York, and Miami by figuring out how to bring in tons of cocaine from Colombia. For the last 7 months, the accused Colombian cocaine lord has been locked up in a specially constructed cell in the federal courthouse in Jacksonville, Florida, where he is the defendant in one of the most important drug trials ever. Because of the reputation of the Colombian drug organizations for violence, there's been extra security for the jury, the prosecutors, and the dozens of witnesses, many of them former close associates of Lehder, who allegedly helped him set up his own drug base on a remote island in the Bahamas, Norman's Key. And it was here that federal authorities say the big-time cocaine business really began in the late 1970s. These pictures, now evidence in the trial, were taken by the smugglers themselves on Norman's Key. And when they weren't flying cocaine runs, there were the teenage girls brought in from Colombia and California. And every night for Carlos Lehder, it was steak, lobster, and cocaine. Somehow, authorities say, this coked-up 34-year-old Colombian hoodlum managed to become America's principal supplier of cocaine from an island in the Bahamas. Much of the testimony here in Jacksonville has implicated not only Lehder, but Bahamian officials he allegedly corrupted, including the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Lynden Pindling. Now, federal prosecutors are known to be seriously considering bringing drug trafficking charges against Pindling and other Bahamians in a case that would be similar to and as much of a diplomatic nightmare as the case brought against General Noriega of Panama. Some of the most damaging testimony involving the Bahamian Prime Minister came from an admitted American drug smuggler, George Barron, who said he had personally bribed the Prime Minister, turning over a briefcase of cash to Pindling in a Bahamian casino. Prime Minister Pindling was on the Caribbean island of St. Kitts this week.
Are you going to move?
And refused to talk to NBC News about the allegations made against him in the Lehder trial. But in full-page ads in American newspapers this week, paid for by the Bahamian government, the Bahamian Attorney General said there was no new evidence with the slightest credibility about drug corruption in the Bahamas. And in an interview last year with a Miami television station, Pindling denied taking any bribes and said he thought Lehder was on Norman's Key to develop a resort.
I knew he was on Norman's Key because we received applications for the development of the resort complex there, which, quite frankly, I thought was a damn good idea.
In his closing argument at the Lehder trial this week, U.S. Attorney Robert Merkel said all the talk about a resort on Norman's Key was nonsense. The lawyer for Lehder, who presented no witnesses for the defense, said Lehder was an honest businessman whose flamboyant lifestyle made him a target of American drug agents. The jury is expected to get the case tomorrow. Brian Ross, NBC News, Jacksonville, Florida.
On special segment tonight, the Caribbean Connection, a report by NBC's Brian Ross on cocaine and what appears to be a pervasive pattern of corruption among some officials in the Caribbean. Today in Florida, a federal grand jury indicted 17 people. 4 were arrested, charged with conspiring to import cocaine into the United States with the help of Bahamian officials. As NBC's Brian Ross tells us now, efforts to fight this Caribbean corruption have been frustrating.
This country is now spending almost $3 billion a year to stop drug smugglers. Every day, teams of agents, helicopters, ships and planes go on patrol in the Caribbean and elsewhere.
Clocking 1200, we're not talking.
But federal officials in Miami say there's more cocaine coming into this country than ever before, and that a big reason for this is a well-entrenched network of cocaine corruption on Caribbean islands, something agents on helicopters and chase planes can't do much about. The latest example, the tiny island Chub Key in the Bahamas, 130 miles from the Florida coast. According to a federal indictment unsealed today in Fort Lauderdale, 2 of the Bahamian officials who control the island took payoffs to permit cocaine planes from Colombia to land here and load their cocaine on speedboats bound for Florida. American officials say Chub Key is just one of a number of islands in the Bahamas where payoffs to officials have created virtual drug bases only a few hours by boat or plane to the Florida coast. But today's indictment, just like others before it, is not likely to mean much. Federal law enforcement authorities here say, given what's happened over the years in similar cases involving the Bahamas, The officials charged today will not be turned over to stand trial in this country. In all too many cases in the Bahamas, American authorities have identified the people they believe are deeply involved in drug payoffs, but they just can't get at them. This man, in the opinion of law enforcement authorities, is one of the principal corruptors of the Caribbean and freely walks the streets of Nassau in the Bahamas. He is Nigel Bowe, a Bahamian lawyer, whose state and federal authorities in Florida have been trying to put on trial for more than a year on charges Bowe put together some of the biggest cocaine smuggling deals in the world.
We never had any difficulty within the Bahamas.
Jack DeVoe says he smuggled millions of dollars worth of cocaine through the Bahamas, working with Nigel Bowe. DeVoe, now in prison, has testified in court about his drug dealings in the Bahamas.
All us drug smugglers at the time felt very secure with knowing of what Nigel Bowe told us, that the government would protect us.
In a telephone conversation from the Bahamas with NBC News, Bowe said the charges against him were grossly unfair and that he would never stand trial. Quote, "I'm in the Bahamas, just let them try," unquote. Authorities say there is one place in the Caribbean where drug corruption was stopped, the island chain of Turks and Caicos, just south of the Bahamas, a British protectorate. Last year, the island's Prime Minister, Norman Saunders, was sent to an American prison after being lured to Miami in an undercover drug investigation. The British Governor General in Turks and Caicos, Christopher Turner, had a lot to do with the arrest of the Prime Minister, calling in American authorities to investigate corruption here.
It is easier to interfere with good government by corrupting at the top, because you've got protection and because people think, hey, that's the way to go. If that's the way the big man's going, who am I to buck the system?
Until the British Governor General put a stop to it, drugs and corruption brought a kind of prosperity to Turks and Caicos, a drug prosperity. And there are many people here who are angry about what Governor Turner did in helping American drug agents arrest the Prime Minister.
I was angry then, I'm angry still.
And we will deal anything to feed our kids.
Even drugs?
Yes!
This month, as Governor Turner left for London and a new assignment, many people came to the airport to jeer him and to chant for the return of their corrupt former Prime Minister. Brian Ross, NBC News, Turks and Caicos.
John Chancellor is here with tonight's commentary on how the United States is dealing with its drug problem. John?
Tom, here's how things work in this country. June 19th, 1986, Len Bias, the baseball star, dies of a drug overdose. Lots of headlines. Washington goes bonkers. The drug epidemic is said to be a national problem. A new package of drug laws is enacted just before the election. After the election, business as usual. It's been reported that the administration's new budget proposes cuts in money to be spent on stopping drugs coming across the border. January 4, 1987, 16 people die in a train wreck and 2 Conrail employees are found to have marijuana in their systems. Lots of headlines. Washington goes bonkers again. Calls are made for sweeping new programs to test airline and railway workers for drugs. Maybe these testing programs are a good idea, and maybe not. But what we do know is that the politicians in Washington respond to headlines. The war against drugs is publicity-driven. You have to wonder if this is the right way to go about fighting a national problem of frightening size. The Attorney General defends the cuts by pointing out that the administration wants more money for enforcement agents, prosecutors, and jail cells. That's the lock-em-up approach. But the administration also wants less money for drug education. And unless you can educate people not to use drugs and treat them if they do use drugs, the problem will only get worse. More cops and jail cells haven't worked so far and won't work in the future. People are dying in this country because there's not enough money for drug treatment programs. But the people who die that way don't make headlines. And sorry to say, without the headlines, it's hard to get money spent on the right things. Which is commentary for this evening, Tom.
Thanks, John. The same gremlins that get to me from time to time got to you tonight. You mistakenly said that Len Bias was a baseball star. And he's
I'm sorry.
Basketball
star.
That. We know
Thank
that.
you.
Okay.
How do you spell your last name? S-Y-M-O-N-E-T-T, Simonet. Okay, Stanley Simonet.
Yes.
Tell me what you were telling me before. It's a very interesting point about what the people here think about the U.S. holding your prime minister in jail.
Well, the people, you see, as I say, it's two parties already, you see? It's two parties of the people. You have the PDMs and you have the PNP.
But overall, you're mad about it. Tell me what you feel about him being in jail in the United States.
I feel very bad about it. Really, I feel bad about it, but it's nothing I can do.
Yeah, but tell me why you're upset. You have a very legitimate point of view there. Tell me why you're mad about it.
Well, why I'm mad about it because it ruined the country, it ruined the islands, you see?
It ruined the island?
Yes.
His arrest?
Well, yeah, to being chief minister, like that, something like that happened to him. And you see, like, if investors want to come here to build and all of that, so it's a funny kind of business on that.
Yeah, but what do you think about one government holding your prime minister in their jail far away? Well, no, just as we were talking before, really, if you could kind of forget these guys are here, I'm trying to, I think you have a very important point to make about that, and I was wondering if you could do that for me again. What do you think about him being in jail in the United States? What's that do to this country? What do the people in this country think about that?
That was a bad business. As I say, it spoiled the country.
His arrest is spoiling the country?
Yeah, should that matter to being our chief minister?
Yeah.
See, he should set more example, telling other people we don't want that to happen around here and all of that. So, and by doing it, it's a funny business.
Yeah, it is a funny business. And it's a spreading business, as we're talking.
See, it's already it's worldwide.
Yeah.
You see, it's on the TV, television, all worldwide.
Sure it is. It's all over the States. It's all over the Bahamas, Colombia. How about here?
Already, yeah, we have TVs here. They show it twice here.
You've had it here?
They show it 2 times here.
What, the drug business?
The 3 fellas had the drugs.
Yeah. Tell me about the planes that you hear coming in at night.
Well, I think the airport closes at 7 o'clock in the night, and sometimes you hear planes passing across here all 12, 1 o'clock in the night. Sometimes, you see now, that's why I say the big fellas knows what's going on. The big fellas, like the ministers and them, we local. When we hear about it, it don't be happening. Now you don't know who, how it goes. But
what do you think those planes are doing at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Well, maybe dropping stuff, dropping dope and things, and they know where to go pick it up.
And that's happening. How often is that happening now?
Well, maybe every 3 or 4 months, like so. Like if they know one plane passed, and they say, well, it's a rundown. So many things that dope or something get through, then it'll be a little hole up for a little while till that finish. Then it continues. It's a funny business, man.
Yeah. And apparently everybody knows about it, right?
Oh yeah, but then what to do? You have a lot of yachts come here, go around the islands, dropping it on the shore. The big shots, they know about it. We local fellas, when we hear about it, it's done.
How often do you hear about it? It's pretty frequent?
Yeah, almost all the time.
All the time?
Almost all the time.
And again, this is my last question to you, and I really appreciate you taking the time, Stanley. Again, what does your friends and you think about the Prime Minister being held in jail in the United States?
Well, as I told you, by the two parties, one of the parties feel, maybe say they glad because what he done was wrong, and some is saying, well, they're sorry. See, because the two parties are against one another.
Yeah.
You see?
What do the people who are supporting him say about his arrest and being held?
Well, they saying like they want everybody in the Turks and Caicos Island to house to get funds to try to pay his way out or whatever the judge say it will be.
There are people trying to raise his bail money here now?
Yes. They having functions all about on the beaches selling food and drinks and stuff.
To try to raise bail money for him?
Yes, to try to.
Where could we see something like that going on? That's a very important thing. I'll just get it set up now.
All about the place.
Really?
To see that.
To try to raise some bail money for him. Yeah. And that's his party?
Yes, that's his party. Well, then you got maybe other people, but already in his party trying to help.
Who?
Maybe you have other friends, but in his party trying to help. Well, nobody know you put your axe for. Somebody might say, well, I put my axe for the PDM. Somebody might say, put my axe for PNP. Now, nobody knows. You see? He goes in the room, but all he do is just put it in the box. So you never know. I will never tell you I went for vote for PDM.
What's your position?
position.
What did you used to be politically here, or what are you now?
No, I'm just a citizen that works at the southern end of the island doing
But
security work.
weren't you a political leader in town at one time?
Oh no.
What do you think about this arrest of the Prime Minister and the others, and the fact that they're being held in jail in Miami on drug charges?
I don't have no objection to that.
Explain what you feel. Explain what you're saying.
Well, like I'll say, to me, if it's me and to the United States, and I was captured on conspiracy or accepting bribes or whatever it is, at least for being an alien, I think I have the tip end of the point.
So your basic point is that it's all right. I mean, he's been charged, and it's all right to hold him.
Yes, I mean, if you get depend on him, man, that's it.
Yeah.
You got the better hand of it. You just have to get pinned.
Hold on, is this gonna?
That's gonna move.
Yeah, let's let him go back. Can you come around a little bit more? Just a little. He wants to get the sun in your face.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take the sun, man.
What?
Hey.
Mark.
Yeah. You're gonna make it kind of short.
Yeah. Can you ask him to shut off that engine just for a second? Yeah, that's right. What do you think about? I'm going to ask you again about him being held in the United States. What do you think about that?
What I think about it?
Yeah.
It's like I told you, there's nothing they can do with it. If it's me, having a fair charge of the United States, whoever it is, I mean, if I had the better end of it, I'd just get foiled.
So you think if they've got the charges, he should be held?
Yes. I mean, it doesn't matter who it is.
What would you recommend to him now that he's been charged?
What I do recommend to them?
Yeah. What should he do? What should the Prime Minister do? Now, should he quit? Should he stay as Prime Minister? What do you think?
No, I think he should. I think he should resign. Yeah.
And why do you say that? And that's my last question.
Well, because I mean, for me, and many more of the people, I think it's because he puts a bad stand on the country by doing certain acts.
Well, how? You and I know full well that I'm from Miami, where drugs are everywhere, and I've been to the Bahamas and Colombia. It's got to be all over the place here too. I mean, so what's the big deal?
Well, I don't know much about
Well, how prevalent do you think it is here, as well as it is other places?
Hard to say.
Tell me your name one more time.
Jennings Raymond.
Jennings Raymond?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Sir.